The Valori Collective had watched Earth for almost 200 years before they decided to make contact. Their scientists had studied every part of human life. They watched humans eat, sleep, fight, and die. They recorded human wars and human peace. They measured human bodies and human minds. And after all that watching, they came to one simple conclusion. Humans were weak. Ambassador Kethral was a senior diplomat of the Valori Collective. He had lived for over 3,000 years and had welcomed dozens of new species into the Galactic Assembly. The Assembly was a gathering of all known intelligent species in the galaxy. Strong species protected weak species. Weak species provided labor and resources. That was the way things worked. Kethral had 4 arms, skin like polished stone, and eyes that could see in complete darkness. His species, the Valori, could survive in the vacuum of space without protection. They could go months without food. They lived for thousands of years. Compared to them, humans were like insects. The human delegation arrived aboard a ship called the USS Endurance. Valori scanners examined the vessel and found it unimpressive. The hull was thin. The weapons were primitive. The engines were slow. Kethral made notes in his report. Typical early spacefaring species. No significant threat. Recommends standard protected status. The humans came aboard the Valori diplomatic station in small groups. Kethral noticed that they needed special suits to survive in some sections of the station. They carried bottles of water because they needed to drink constantly. They moved slowly and carefully, always checking their equipment. Weak, Kethral thought. So very weak. The leader of the human delegation was a female named Admiral Patricia Cole. She had gray hair mixed with brown, and lines on her face that showed her age. Kethral's translator told him she was 63 years old. By Valori standards, she was barely a child. By human standards, she was already old. Beside the admiral stood a male in a dark blue uniform covered with colorful decorations. His name was Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Bell. He was tall for a human, with dark skin and eyes that moved constantly, watching everything. Kethral assumed he was some kind of ceremonial guard. Humans seemed to enjoy ceremonies. "We welcome you to the Galactic Assembly," Kethral said. His voice was deep and rumbling, and the translator turned it into sounds the humans could understand. "This is a great day for your species. You have taken your first steps into a larger universe." Admiral Cole nodded politely. "Thank you, Ambassador. We are honored to be here. You will find that the galaxy operates under certain rules," Kethral continued. He spread his forearms wide in a gesture meant to show generosity. "The strong protect the weak. This is the foundation of galactic peace. As a protected species, humanity will contribute labor and resources in exchange for our defense." The Admiral's face did not change, but something shifted in her eyes. "Protected species?" "Yes, of course." Kethral was patient. New species always needed time to understand their place. "Your biology is quite limiting. You require constant food and water. You must sleep for many hours each day. Your bodies cannot regulate temperature without artificial help. You can be killed by creatures too small to see. And you expire after barely 100 years. He gestured toward the window, where stars burned in the endless darkness. The Valori live for millennia. The Krethver are immune to radiation and can regenerate from almost any wound. The Silthani can survive having their bodies cut in half. Compared to these species, humans are. He searched for a diplomatic word. Delicate. Sergeant Bell made a small sound. Admiral Cole placed her hand on his arm. "We appreciate your concern for our well-being," the Admiral said. Her voice was calm and controlled. "But I think there may be some misunderstanding about human capabilities." Kethral's translator made a sound like laughter, There is no misunderstanding, Admiral. We have studied your species extensively. You cannot even survive in your own oceans without mechanical assistance. You cannot fly without machines. You cannot run as fast as many of your planet's animals. In purely biological terms, you are one of the weakest sentient species ever discovered. The Admiral and the Sergeant exchanged a look that Kethril could not interpret. Perhaps, Admiral Cole said slowly, we should schedule a more detailed cultural exchange. There are aspects of human history that might interest the Assembly. Kethril waved one of his hands dismissively. Human history is already well documented in our archives. We know about your wars, your diseases, your natural disasters. We know that your species nearly destroyed itself multiple times before achieving space travel. This is common for primitive species. You are not unique in this regard. I see. The Admiral's voice remained pleasant. And what conclusions did your researchers draw from our history? That humanity is a species prone to self-destruction, Kethril said honestly. Your wars are frequent and bloody. Your weapons development outpaces your wisdom. If left alone, you would likely destroy yourselves within a few centuries. That is why protected status is so important. The Assembly will help guide humanity toward a more peaceful existence. Sergeant Bell spoke for the first time. His voice was quiet but clear. With respect, Ambassador, what exactly does protected status involve? Kethril was surprised. Guards did not usually speak during diplomatic meetings, but he answered anyway. Protected species do not need large military forces. The Assembly provides security. Protected species focus on resource production and population growth. Over time, as you develop, you may be granted additional privileges. So, we would disarm, Bell said. Give up our military. You would maintain small peacekeeping forces for internal matters. But yes, large-scale military operations would be handled by more capable species. The sergeant nodded slowly. His face showed no expression. Admiral Cole smiled. It was a strange smile, Kethril thought. Not warm, not friendly. Something else. Ambassador, humanity is grateful for this opportunity to join the galactic community. We look forward to learning from more advanced species. However, I must be honest with you. The decision to disarm is not mine to make. That would require approval from our entire planet, and I can tell you now that such approval is unlikely. Kethril felt his first hint of annoyance. New species sometimes resisted their proper place. It was inconvenient but not unusual. In time, you will understand, he said. All protected species resist at first. But the logic is clear. You cannot defend yourselves against the threats that exist in this galaxy. Better to accept help than to suffer needlessly. The Admiral stood. The Sergeant stood with her. Thank you for your time, Ambassador. We will return to our ship and report to our government. I am sure we will have many more conversations in the future. After the humans left, Kethril made his final notes. The humans were polite but stubborn. They would need guidance. They would need patience. But eventually, they would accept their place among the weak. He was absolutely certain of this. He could not have been more wrong. 3 months passed after humanity joined the Galactic Assembly. During that time, human diplomats attended meetings, signed trade agreements, and smiled politely at every species they met. The Valori were pleased. The humans were learning their place. Ambassador Kethril received regular reports about human behavior. They were cooperative. They asked many questions about galactic culture and technology. They shared information about their own planet freely. They seemed properly grateful for the protection offered by more advanced species. Everything was going according to plan. Then the Krethfer Dominion decided to test the humans. The Krethfer were a warrior species. They had scales like armor, claws that could tear through metal, and teeth designed for killing. They stood over 2 meters tall and weighed 3 times as much as an average human. Their eyes could see heat, which made hiding from them nearly impossible. They were immune to most poisons and could survive wounds that would kill any other species. The Krethver had been part of the assembly for thousands of years, but they had never accepted Valori leadership. They believed that strength should rule, and they resented being told what to do by diplomats and politicians. When humanity joined the assembly as a protected species, the Krethver saw an opportunity. A weak species with no powerful allies. A perfect target. The human colony on New Providence had a population of 40,000. It was a farming world, covered in green fields and small towns. The colonists grew food that was shipped to other human settlements. They had no warships in orbit. They had no planetary defense systems, or so the Krethver believed. 12. Krethver warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel above New Providence. They broadcast a single message to the planet below: surrender or die. The Krethver expected the humans to surrender. Every weak species surrendered when faced with overwhelming force. It was the natural order of things. The humans did not surrender. Sergeant Marcus Bell was on New Providence for a training exercise. He had brought the 3rd Marine Expeditionary Unit with him. 800 men and women, equipped with weapons and armor designed for combat against threats far worse than the Krethver could imagine. Bell received the enemy broadcast in his command center. He listened to the Krethver demands, then turned to his communications officer. "Get me a line to the colony administrator," he said calmly. "Tell all civilians to move to the underground shelters. Then get me a count of enemy ground forces." The communications officer, a young woman named Lieutenant Katie Santos, nodded sharply. "Yes, Sergeant." "What about the enemy ships in orbit?" Bell looked at the tactical display showing 12 hostile vessels. "Contact the Endurance. Tell Admiral Cole we have a situation." The Krethver landed their ground troops 2 hours later. 5,000 warriors, each one confident that the soft humans would run or beg for mercy. They had conquered dozens of worlds. They had never lost a ground war. They spread out across the farmland, moving toward the largest town. Their sensors showed human life signs in the buildings ahead. The warriors grinned, showing rows of sharp teeth. The first Krethver squad entered the town square and found it empty. The buildings were silent. The streets were deserted. Then the shooting started. Human soldiers appeared on rooftops, in windows, behind barriers. Their weapons were loud and brutal, firing projectiles that punched through Krethver scales like paper. The warriors tried to return fire, but they could not find targets. The humans were everywhere and nowhere, shooting and moving, never staying in one place. The squad leader roared commands, trying to organize his troops. A bullet took him through the throat. He fell, and his warriors scattered in confusion. Across the planet, similar scenes played out. Krethver landing parties walked into ambush after ambush. Human soldiers used the terrain against them, attacking from unexpected angles, disappearing before the warriors could respond. The Krethver had expected a hunt. Instead, they found themselves being hunted. Bell commanded from a mobile position, moving constantly to avoid enemy detection. He watched reports come in from across the battlefield. The Marines were taking casualties, but the Krethver were losing soldiers at a ratio of 10 to 1. "Sergeant," Lieutenant Santos reported, "the enemy flagship is moving into bombardment position. They are preparing to fire on civilian shelters." Bell's jaw tightened. "Where's the Endurance?" 20 minutes out. Too long. In 20 minutes, thousands of civilians would be dead. Bell made a decision. "All units, execute Plan Omega. We are taking that flagship." The plan was insane by any reasonable standard. 200 Marines in assault shuttles, attacking a warship designed to destroy entire fleets. But the Marines did not hesitate. They had trained for moments like this. The shuttles launched from hidden positions across the planet. They flew low and fast, using the planet's magnetic field to mask their approach. The Krethver flagship detected them too late. Bell was first through the breach. He led his team through twisted metal and smoke, fighting corridor by corridor toward the bridge. The Krethver defenders were fierce, but they were not prepared for close combat with humans who had nothing to lose. The battle lasted 47 minutes. When it ended, the flagship was in human hands. 3 other Krethver ships had been captured. 8 more were retreating at maximum speed, leaving their ground forces behind. On the surface, the remaining Krethver warriors found themselves surrounded by Marines who offered them a choice: surrender or die. Most chose to surrender. When Ambassador Kethral arrived with a Valori relief fleet, he found a battlefield that defied everything he believed about humans. The weak species had not only defended itself, but had won a decisive victory against one of the galaxy's most feared warrior races. He found Sergeant Bell overseeing the treatment of Krethfor prisoners. The human was covered in blood and dirt, his uniform torn in a dozen places. But he was alive, and his enemies were defeated. How is this possible? Kethral demanded. The Krethver are apex predators. Their scales deflect most energy weapons. Their claws can tear through starship hulls. Bell wiped blood from his forehead. It was not his blood. They are strong, he admitted, but they are predictable. They rely on their natural advantages too much. They have never fought an enemy that adapts as fast as we do. Kethral stared at the rows of Krethver prisoners. Each warrior was twice the size of the human soldiers guarding them. And yet the warriors sat quietly, their weapons taken, their pride broken. You are protected species, Kethral said. You should not have been able to do this. Bell looked at the ambassador with eyes that had seen too much death. With respect, Ambassador, humans have been killing things bigger, stronger, and faster than us since we first stood upright. We hunted mammoths with wooden spears. We killed wolves with our bare hands. We do not need to be the strongest. We just need to be the most determined. He turned back to his prisoners. We survived not because we were powerful, but because we refused to give up. That is what your researchers missed when they studied us. Our bodies are weak, yes, but our will to survive is stronger than any armor. Kethral had no response to this. For the first time in 3,000 years, he began to wonder if the Valori had made a terrible mistake. News of the battle at New Providence spread across the galaxy like fire. Every species in the assembly heard the story. A protected species had defeated the Krethver Dominion. The weak humans had beaten one of the strongest warrior races in known space. Some species did not believe it. The Krethver must have been weakened by disease, they said. The humans must have received secret help from the Valori. There had to be some explanation other than the obvious truth. The Valori High Council demanded answers. They summoned Admiral Patricia Cole to the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Assembly. Representatives from over 300 species attended. They wanted to understand how this impossible victory had happened. Admiral Cole arrived in her formal uniform, white and gold with rows of medals across her chest. Sergeant Bell stood behind her, now wearing the rank insignia of a lieutenant. His promotion had been approved within hours of the battle ending. Ambassador Kethral introduced the Admiral to the Assembly. His voice was careful, without the condescension he had shown in their first meeting. The Assembly recognizes Admiral Patricia Cole of the United Earth Government. She has requested time to address the gathered representatives. The floor is yours, Admiral. Cole stepped forward to the central platform. Around her, thousands of alien faces watched with curiosity, fear, and confusion. "Thank you, Ambassador," she began. "I understand there has been some confusion about human military capabilities. I am here to provide clarity." She pressed a button on her control device. A massive display screen lit up behind her, showing an image from Earth's past. Soldiers in muddy trenches stretched across a devastated landscape. The sky was gray with smoke. "This is what humans call the Western Front," Cole said. "It existed on Earth during a conflict we call World War I. This war lasted 4 years, from 1914 to 1918. During those 4 years, approximately 20 million humans died." The chamber was silent. 20 million was a number that demanded attention. The weapons used in this war would be considered primitive by galactic standards. Rifles, cannons, poison gas. No energy weapons. No spacecraft. Just humans killing humans with metal and fire. She clicked to the next image. Cities burning. Bodies in the streets. A mushroom cloud rising into the sky. This is World War II. It began 20 years after the First War ended. We had learned nothing from our previous destruction. We simply found new ways to kill each other. Cole's voice remained calm and steady. 60 to 80 million humans died in this war. We are not certain of the exact number because accurate records were not kept. During this conflict, humans developed nuclear weapons. These weapons use the fundamental forces of the universe to create explosions capable of destroying entire cities. She paused, letting the assembly absorb this information. We used these weapons on our own kind twice. Each weapon killed over 100,000 humans in an instant. Many more died slowly from radiation poisoning in the months that followed. A Sylphani representative raised one of their tentacles. "You used planet-destroying weapons on your own species? Why were you not stopped?" "There was no one to stop us," Cole said simply. "We had not yet encountered other intelligent species. We were alone in the universe, fighting ourselves." She clicked to another image. This one showed a document, pages of text with official seals. After World War II, humans created something called the Geneva Conventions. Lieutenant Bell will explain. Bell stepped forward. His voice was clear and strong. The Geneva Conventions are a set of rules for warfare. They exist because humans recognize that we are capable of terrible things. The rules try to limit the destruction we cause when we fight each other. He met the eyes of the Assembly's representatives. The rules define what we call war crimes. These are actions considered too brutal even for war. Attacking medical personnel. Using poison gas. Deliberately killing civilians. Torturing prisoners. Using starvation as a weapon. Destroying hospitals and schools. A Krethfer representative interrupted. "You have rules against these things because you do them?" "Yes," Bell said. "We have done all of these things many times throughout our history. The rules are an attempt to make ourselves less efficient at killing. They do not always work." The chamber erupted in whispers and electronic translations. Representatives turned to each other in shock and disbelief. Admiral Cole raised her hand, and the chamber slowly quieted. "I understand that this information is disturbing. That is intentional. The Valori classified humanity as a protected species because our bodies are weak. This was a reasonable conclusion based on the data available." She straightened her shoulders. "But you did not understand what human weakness has taught us. We cannot outrun our predators, so we learn to trap them. We cannot defeat our enemies with strength, so we learn to defeat them with intelligence and determination. Every challenge that should have destroyed us made us stronger." She clicked to a final image. Earth, blue and green and white, hanging in the darkness of space. We survived ice ages that killed most life on our planet. We survived plagues that killed half our population. We survived wars that burned our cities to ash. We survived because we adapted, because we learned, because we refused to die." Her voice hardened. "The Krethver attacked our colony with 12 warships and 5,000 warriors. They expected us to surrender. They did not understand that humans do not surrender easily. We have been fighting for our survival since we first drew breath. War is not new to us. It is part of who we are." She looked directly at the Krethver representatives. "Your warriors are brave and strong. We respect them. But they made the mistake of underestimating their enemy. Humans have spent thousands of years learning how to kill things that are bigger and stronger than us. Your warriors had natural weapons. We had to create ours. And the weapons we created are limited only by our imagination." The Krethver representative stood. "You speak as if you are proud of your violence." "No," Cole said. "We are not proud of it. We are ashamed of much of our history. The millions who died in our wars haunt us still. We have tried to become better, to create rules that limit our destruction, to find peaceful solutions to our conflicts." She spread her hands. "But we will not pretend to be harmless. We are not harmless. We are the most dangerous species we know of, and we have been fighting to control that danger for our entire history. If you threaten us, we will respond with everything we have learned in 10,000 years of killing each other." The chamber was completely silent. "We hope for peace," Cole concluded. "We genuinely want to be good members of the Galactic Assembly. We want to trade and learn and grow alongside other species. But anyone who mistakes our hope for peace as weakness will learn the truth the same way the Krethver did." She stepped back from the platform. "That is all I have to say. Thank you for your attention." As she walked out of the chamber, representatives from dozens of species began speaking at once. The universe had changed. The weak species from Earth was not weak at all. And the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The Krethver Dominion could not accept defeat. Their entire culture was built on strength and conquest. To lose to a weak species like humanity was more than a military failure. It was a shame that burned in the hearts of every Krethver warrior. The High Council of the Dominion met in their fortress world, deep in the heart of their territory. They debated for 3 days before reaching a decision. Humanity must be destroyed. Not conquered, not enslaved, but completely eliminated. Only then could the honor of the Dominion be restored. They began gathering their fleets. Admiral Cole received intelligence reports aboard the USS Endurance. The news was not good. 347 warships confirmed. Lieutenant Danny Morrison reported. He was young, barely 25 years old, but he had proven himself capable during the battle at New Providence. More arriving every day. Intelligence estimates they will reach full strength within 1 month. Cole studied the holographic display. The enemy fleet was massive, each ship larger and more powerful than anything humanity could match. "What about the assembly?" she asked. "The Valori have offered to mediate. The Silthani are staying neutral. Most other species are watching to see what happens." Cole understood. The galaxy wanted to know if humanity could back up the words they had spoken in the assembly chamber. If they failed, they would be remembered as a species that talked about being dangerous, but could not prove it. She could not let that happen. "How many combat ships do we have in this sector?" Morrison checked his display. 43, ma'am. Even if we pull every vessel from every colony, we cannot match their numbers." "Then we will not fight them directly," Cole said. "Get me the historical files on guerrilla warfare. The American Revolution, the Vietnam War, the Finnish Winter War. We are going to teach the Krethver a lesson they will never forget." The next 6 weeks were the busiest in human military history. Colonies were evacuated. Space stations were abandoned. Ships were hidden in asteroid fields, behind moons, and inside the atmospheres of gas giants. When the Krethver fleet arrived, they would find nothing to attack. Lieutenant Bell commanded one of the special forces teams assigned to this new kind of warfare. His job was simple in theory, but dangerous in practice. Attack the enemy when they least expected it, then disappear before they could respond. The Krethver fleet arrived at the designated human border on schedule. Their sensors swept the area and found only empty space. The human colonies were dark. The stations were silent. There were no defenders waiting to be crushed. The Dominion fleet commander, a massive warrior named Lord Grethkal, was confused but not worried. The humans were hiding. This was the behavior of prey, not predators. They would be found and destroyed. He ordered his fleet deeper into human space. The first attack came. 3 hours later, a Krethver supply ship was traveling alone, separated from the main fleet by only a few thousand kilometers. Without warning, 2 small human vessels emerged from the shadow of a nearby asteroid. They fired missiles that punched through the supply ship's engines. Before the Krethver could respond, the human ships vanished back into the asteroid field. The supply ship was left drifting, its cargo of food and weapons lost. Grethkal sent warships to hunt the attackers. They searched the asteroid field for days, but found nothing. The humans had disappeared like ghosts. Similar attacks happened throughout the sector. Communication relays were destroyed. Navigation satellites were disabled. Fuel depots exploded without warning. The Krethver fleet was bleeding from 1,000 small wounds, and they could not find the enemy that was cutting them. Lieutenant Bell led one of the most daring operations. His team approached a damaged Krethver cruiser that had been disabled by previous attacks. The ship was dark, its power systems barely functioning, but it still held 300 warriors. Bell and 20 Marines boarded the vessel through emergency airlocks. They moved through the corridors in complete silence, taking out guards one by one. The Krethver could not understand how humans could move so quietly. Their boots made no sound. Their weapons whispered instead of roared. Within 4 hours, the cruiser was under human control. The surviving Krethver were taken prisoner and treated according to the Geneva Conventions. They were given medical care, food, and water. They were not tortured or abused. This confused the prisoners greatly. Why do you show us mercy? One Krethver captain asked Bell. We came to destroy your entire species. We would have killed every human we found. Bell cleaned his weapon while the prisoner watched. We are not you, he said simply. We have rules about how we treat prisoners. Even enemies deserve basic dignity. But we would not show you the same mercy. I know. That does not change who we are. The captain's scales rippled in confusion. Your species is strange. You fight like demons, then show kindness to the defeated. We can be both, Bell said. We choose to be both. Being capable of terrible things does not mean we must always do terrible things. He finished cleaning his weapon and looked at the captain directly. You will be released soon. You will return to your fleet with a message. Tell your commanders that humanity is willing to negotiate peace. Tell them that every day this war continues, they will lose more ships and more warriors. Tell them that we can do this forever. The captain was released as promised. He carried Bell's message back to Lord Grethkal. Grethkal did not listen. He ordered his fleet to press forward, determined to find the human forces and crush them in open battle. But the humans refused to fight openly. They continued their attacks, striking from shadows, destroying supply lines, capturing ships and releasing prisoners with messages of peace. The Krethver warriors grew frustrated and afraid. They had been trained to fight enemies who stood and faced them. They did not know how to fight enemies who appeared from nowhere and vanished like smoke. 3 weeks into the invasion, the Dominion had lost 67 ships. They had not destroyed a single human vessel. Admiral Cole monitored the campaign from a hidden command center deep in an asteroid. She watched the enemy fleet grow weaker and more disorganized with each passing day. How long can we keep this up? Morrison asked. As long as necessary, Cole replied. The Krethver are strong, but they are impatient. They want a decisive battle, a moment of glory. We will not give them that satisfaction. We will bleed them slowly until they understand that this war cannot be won. She looked at the tactical display showing enemy positions. Humans have fought wars like this before. We have lost empires to determined enemies who refuse to face us directly. The Krethver think their strength makes them invincible. They will learn what many human empires learned before them. Strength means nothing if you cannot find your enemy. The war continued. The Krethver kept advancing, and humans kept retreating and striking. Each day brought new losses for the Dominion. Each day brought new frustration for warriors who had never known defeat. And slowly, inevitably, the tide began to turn. Why Humans Avoid War Until You Force Them to Fight Part 1, The Galactic Assembly, was the largest gathering of alien species in the known universe. Representatives from over 300 worlds met there to discuss trade, borders, and the future of civilization among the stars. And for the past 200 years, humans have been the most confusing species anyone had ever encountered. They were weak. Everyone agreed on this. Their bodies had no armor, no claws, no poison. They lived for less than a century, which was considered a very short time compared to most spacefaring races. Their home planet was a small blue world with dangerous weather and limited resources. By every logical measure, humans should have been conquered long ago, but they had not been conquered. In fact, humans have built 12 thriving colonies across the galaxy. They traded with almost everyone. Their diplomats were welcomed on hundreds of worlds. And in 200 years of space travel, they had never started a single war. Ambassador Daniel Cooper stood at the center of the assembly chamber, delivering another speech about cooperation and mutual benefit. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He spoke slowly and clearly, making sure his words were understood by every species listening. The Velthri delegation watched him with barely hidden disgust. The Velthri were a proud warrior race. Their empire had conquered 47 worlds through military strength. They respected power and viewed anything else as weakness. High Commander Zolroth, the leader of the Velthri military, turned to his officers after the session ended. He was a massive creature with dark scales and sharp teeth. His voice was deep and filled with contempt. "Look at them," he said. "These humans talk and talk about peace. They negotiate. They compromise. They give ground to avoid conflict. They are cowards, nothing more." His officers nodded in agreement. "They fear death," Zolroth continued. "Their lives are so short that they cling to every moment. They have no warrior spirit. When the time comes, they will break easily." This was what most aggressive species believed about humanity. The humans were soft. They were afraid. They avoided war because they could not handle it. None of them understood the truth. Far from the assembly, in a quiet region of space near the galactic rim, Captain Lisa Morgan commanded the exploration vessel Endurance. It was a medium-sized ship built for science and discovery, not combat. A crew of 68 people included humans and members of 3 allied species, all working together to map unknown star systems. Lisa was a practical woman in her early 40s. She had spent 20 years in space, first as a pilot, then as a science officer, and finally as a captain. She loved exploration. She believed that understanding the universe was more important than fighting over it. On this particular day, her communications officer picked up a distress signal. "Captain, we have an emergency call. A civilian freighter is under attack. They are asking for help." Lisa moved to the main screen. The signal came from a Kavari trading ship, a small vessel from a peaceful merchant species. The attackers were two Velthari patrol craft. They are outside Velthari territory, her navigator noted. This is illegal. Lisa knew this. The Velthari often pushed their boundaries, attacking weaker species when they thought no one was watching. It was how they maintained their reputation for strength. Set a course to intercept, Lisa ordered. Maximum speed. Her first officer, a young man named Chris Turner, looked concerned. Captain, we are not a warship. We have light weapons at best. Those are military vessels. I know what they are, Lisa said calmly. But we are not going to sit here while innocent people die. The Endurance arrived at the scene within the hour. The Kavari freighter was badly damaged, its hull scarred by weapons fire. The two Velthari ships circled it like predators playing with wounded prey. Lisa opened the communication channel. Velthari vessels, this is Captain Lisa Morgan of the Earthship Endurance. Stop your attack immediately and withdraw from this area. There was a moment of silence. Then a harsh voice responded. Human, this matter does not concern you. Leave now, or you will share their fate. Lisa kept her voice steady. I am asking you one more time. Please stop your attack and withdraw. The Velthari commander laughed. It was an ugly sound. You asked politely? How very human. Run away, little coward. This is not your fight. The channel closed. The Velthari ships resumed firing on the freighter. Lisa made her decision instantly. Helm, put us between the Velthari and the freighter. Communications, send an emergency beacon to Earth Command. Let them know what is happening here. Chris Turner stared at her. Captain, if we take that position, they will fire on us. Yes, Lisa agreed. They probably will. She looked at her crew. They were scientists, explorers, and researchers. They had not signed up for combat, but not one of them objected. The Endurance moved into position, placing itself directly in the line of fire. The Velthari weapons struck the ship's shields, causing the whole vessel to shake. Warning lights flashed across every console. Shields holding, the tactical officer reported. But not for long at this rate. Lisa gripped her chair. Hold position. Help is coming. For 80 minutes, the Endurance absorbed fire meant for the helpless freighter. The shields failed twice and were restored by emergency power. 3 crew members were injured when a console exploded. But they held their ground. Then 2 Earth military vessels dropped out of hyperspace, responding to the emergency beacon. They were proper warships, armed and ready for battle. The Velthari commander suddenly found himself outgunned. He ordered his ships to withdraw, fleeing back toward their own territory. The crisis was over. Later, as medical teams tended to the wounded and engineers repaired the damage, Chris Turner found Lisa on the observation deck. She was staring out at the stars, her face thoughtful. Captain, he said, we almost died out there. For strangers. For people we had never met. Lisa nodded slowly. Yes, we almost did. Why? Chris asked. I understand wanting to help, but we could have called for backup and waited. We did not have to put ourselves in danger. Lisa was quiet for a long moment before answering. Because that is who we are, she said finally. Humans have done terrible things throughout our history. We have hurt each other in ways that most species cannot imagine. But we also learned something from all that pain. We learned that standing by while innocents suffer is its own kind of evil. So we do not stand by, even when it costs us. Chris considered this. The Velthari think we are cowards because we avoid war. Let them think what they want, Lisa said. We know the truth. We avoid war because we understand it better than anyone. We know what it does to people, what it makes them become. She paused. But when innocent lives are at stake, we do not run. We never run. Far away, in his command ship, High Commander Zoreth reviewed reports of the incident. One detail caught his attention. The human captain had been willing to sacrifice her ship and crew for strangers of another species. That was not the behavior of cowards. For the first time, Zoreth felt a small seed of doubt, but he pushed it aside. Humans were weak. Everyone knew this. One brave captain did not change anything. He had no idea how wrong he was.